first I'd like to say thank you very much for having me and for giving me this opportunity to present my high school story to you. And I'd first like to say, so this is my portfolio, and feel free to look at however much of it you'd like. Mr. Vest, anybody, you can look through it. I'd be honored if you would. So, my story throughout high school is a story about music, graphic design, and how both kind of interacted and shaped my life's path. So, let's begin at freshman year. I think it's important to see the roles that music and graphic design had in my life during each stage and each year in my life in high school. So during freshman year, music was extremely important to me. I was the leader of the youth worship band at my church. I was in the men's beginning choir, and I was starting to kind of dabble in songwriting, actually. Graphic design, on the other hand, was not near as big a deal to me. I had a small kind of budding interest in it, but I didn't have many outlets with which to actually do it, and I had really no experience with it, and so those two mixed together, I just didn't really do any graphic design, except for a handful of pieces like this, and this were actually created on the computer. Most of my designs were hand-drawn, which this is. As far as my schedule went, all of my classes were beneficial and really foundational during ninth grade year, but there were a couple that I feel need to be particularly mentioned. Choir, of course, is one of them because of the musical experience it gave me, and that kind of brotherhood was really good for me in ninth grade, getting acclimated to high school. Oral communications is probably the other biggest class that I can say I take with me everywhere from freshman year, because Mr. Dancer did a phenomenal job at teaching how to prepare, how to execute, how to practice his speech, and I still continue with those skills to this day.
To come to the main office at the end of the hour, please. Devin Bremer, Alex Cordero, Gavin Long, Saraí Garcia, Sydney Barnes, Quincy Scott. Please come to the main office. Thank you.
One of the organizations I participated in during my freshman year is Fine Arts, and it's a competition put on by the Assemblies of God, and its focus is to help students refine their talents with the purpose of ministry and doing ministry in the future. And I've done that throughout my high school years, but Fine Arts was a big deal during my ninth grade year as well. It's all right.
Excuse the interruption. Seniors, if your name is on the community scholarship recipient list, you need to see Mrs. Johnson to complete some information before the ceremony. Additionally, if you are a senior receiving a college or outside scholarship that you did not report on the senior survey, please see Mrs. Johnson for a paper form that you can complete. If you do not report those scholarships to us, we cannot acknowledge them at the scholarship ceremony. Thank you.
The organization, though, that I was probably most involved with during freshman year was the worship team at my church, and specifically, like I mentioned a second ago, leading the youth worship band. Being on this team has probably been the largest commitment that I've had cumulatively during my entire high school years. It's kind of amounted to hundreds of hours of practice and service, and it's been a really big hobby of mine, as well as my primary method of community service. Now, through oral communications, leading the worship team, and I didn't mention this, but I did begin taking Spanish during this year. My ability to communicate definitely grew and flourished during this year, and also increased my employability skills just kind of naturally. Freshman year was also a big year for content knowledge. Like I kind of alluded to, American history, biology, stories like To Kill a Mockingbird and Romeo and Juliet, and basic geometry. These are just foundational skills that a well-informed adult needs to know. And this was a really big year for that. I made the all-region choir during that year and was voted by the freshman student body to the homecoming corps, which was a really, really big honor. And I was also able to maintain an A average throughout that year, and because of that, I was awarded a Heritage Scholar Award. And then all of a sudden, freshman year was over, and in came sophomore year, and a big change was I got a haircut for the first time in a really long time, and that picture you saw was kind of the experimental stages of the short look. But anyway, I took choir this particular year again and participated in a lot of the same activities, if you can tell or not. But a few things did change. and one of them was the academy that I was in. I chose to be in the Students of Music, Arts, and Communications Academy, SMAC. And this academy was a really, really good fit for me because, of course, my interests at the time were in music and still in art, not specifically graphic design at that moment. But it really opened up the opportunity to be around like-minded people and teachers, and ultimately, the SMAC Academy kind of facilitated my decision to be in graphic design as a career, and I'll get to that later. I also began attending the Fellowship of Christian Athletes at Heritage and was able to be in a leadership position within the group. As a leader in FCA, I prepared weekly devotions or lessons and then conducted the weekly meetings where we discussed the devotions and lessons. And another big part that kind of changed and shifted during sophomore year was advisory. Freshman year, advisory is very structured for the most part. During sophomore year, advisory became kind of less structured. We still very much did what we needed to do, but there was a lot more free time to kind of socialize, and it was a really good kind of socialization because we had that time kind of carved out where we needed to be there together, and I was with people that I probably wouldn't be with otherwise, whether it be because of our schedules or just because our personalities were so different, but we had this time carved out where we could talk to each other and socialize, and it really was a cool moment for me to befriend and empathize with people that I was a lot different with. As far as traits go, my content knowledge, again, continued to grow. Algebra 2 and chemistry, things like that were a big kind of theme throughout my sophomore year. And my ability to communicate with others also continued to grow due to being a leader in FCA and that really unique opportunity I had in advisory. As far as awards and honors go, I had the privilege of acquiring some throughout the year, like a Chamber of Commerce Academic Award and making the All-Region Choir. But probably one of the most memorable honors that I received during sophomore year was the privilege of being asked to pray over the baccalaureate ceremony that year. Ms. Mooney, the FCA sponsor, she asked me if I'd like to do it. I happily agreed to. I was also voted onto the 2014 Colors Day Court my sophomore year and was asked to speak at the Oakdale Academic Honors Celebration, which was a really, really cool opportunity. I got to speak on excellence and integrity, and this is actually my sister, which it's kind of hard to see her, but this was the night of the ceremony, and she actually got an award during the ceremony. So it was a pretty cool moment. As far as music's role in my life during that year, it really didn't change much. I was still in choir, still very involved. My aspirations whenever I graduated college was, to do something in music still. Graphic design, though, was kind of interesting. It actually became kind of less of a part of my life, even during sophomore year. It just, again, not a lot of outlets to do it with, not very much experience. With the exception of this, which this is actually supposed to look like a meat leg. And it's for a fantasy football league that I was a part of, which is kind of an anomaly, but that happened during my sophomore year. This is an FCA poster I created, and then this is a school assignment. Other than that, there weren't really a whole lot of opportunities, but it wasn't completely dismissed. This was actually another one I did. It was for Mole Day, which we celebrate that in chemistry class, and this is kind of supposed to look like a movie poster. Molly and me. It's supposed to be like Marley and me, because he's a mole, but he's got a bone in his mouth. I thought it was kind of funny. But anyway, this poster kind of foreshadows what happened during my junior year, where the focus begins to expand from only music to graphic design and music. As far as my schedule went, I began taking AP classes for the first time this year, which was a really big challenge, but a really good challenge. And I also became a library media aide for the first time, which was a really, really cool opportunity to kind of be in a work-study environment, but you're still at school. I really enjoyed that opportunity. I also got involved with Link Crew, which gave me the opportunity to invest in the lives of freshman students and get them better acclimated into high school, which was a really, really, really cool opportunity. But probably the biggest, most significant change in my schedule was the introduction of graphic design classes. I began to work and slowly build skills in programs like Photoshop and Illustrator. Specifically, all of these items were created in Illustrator, which is just one of the programs that I got to know better. I was really fascinated with pretty much everything we did in the class, and I kind of wanted to get there every day. It was my 7th hour, so it always gave me something to look forward to, and I loved looking forward to it, and I kind of wanted to stay afterwards every day, so I really loved it. In fact, I became so passionate about graphic design that I started to create designs for my church just because I really wanted to. This is a sermon slide, so this is like the title of the sermon, Food Wars, and I got to create kind of the background. This is a logo that I got to create, and then this is actually a t-shirt design that I got to create for my church. This is the back design of that. So really fun opportunity. It just kind of took me by storm. Now that I knew how to do it, I was like, I want to do as much as possible. So throughout my year in graphic design, I became much more literate in technology and digital software, specifically graphic design software like Photoshop and Illustrator. I also further developed my reasoning and thinking skills because, in a lot of ways, designing these graphics is kind of like a puzzle. You know what the end product needs to be, sort of. You know the idea that it needs to be, but you have to visualize that idea. It needs to be good. You need to know how to actually execute that idea on the computer and get your thought actually onto the screen. So a lot of reasoning and thinking skills involved, but those challenges really helped develop those skills. During this year, I was awarded another Chamber of Commerce Academic Award as well as a Heritage Scholar Award. A huge honor specifically was being inducted into the National Honor Society. It was a really cool moment. So to recap, junior year, in terms of music and graphic design, so you kind of get the overarching story, I did drop choir during this year, but I was still on the youth and adult worship teams. So music was still very much prevalent in my life. It had just taken kind of a different turn. I continued to grow as a lyricist and songwriter, and I actually had the opportunity to record a song by myself for the first time as a gift to my parents for Christmas, which was really cool. I used my sister's walk-in closet because it absorbs the sound, so you didn't have that hum in the background. And just 3 days, I worked really hard. Yeah, and they didn't really know what I was doing in there. They know I was doing something like music and some screaming. But I got to do that, and that was a really cool moment musically for me. Graphic design began to take a much bigger role. Again, I've kind of already stated why, but I began to take classes. I began to do projects at home just for the fun of it. So after junior year, I got a summer job at Northwest Assembly, which is my church. And this was a really big chapter in my story because this was a time of incredible growth for me as a designer. I began to further refine kind of my eye for design and became better accustomed to developing kind of a cohesive look for multiple graphics to make them feel as if they belong together, which was a really cool thing to learn. Through this job, I began to learn important employability skills like working through a deadline and communicating in a work environment and very important skills like that. And this was also a really good opportunity to explore this career, not as just a graphic design, but graphic designer in a specific place doing with a specific purpose. I got to see it as a career, and I got to kind of decide, is this something that I'd like to do in the future? And fortunately, doing this summer job really reinforced that and made me realize this is what I'd like to do as a lifelong career. And so now knowing that graphic design is what I want to do in life, senior year has been a year of really kind of coming into my own. I've become more comfortable with creating different types of graphics. For instance, this is it's an informational poster with an attempt to raise awareness for drunk driving. This is an imaginary creature, kind of hard to see, but it's a flying crab, so it's not real, obviously. But I got to create it with real images and through Photoshop, and it was a ton of fun. This was a greeting card that I got to create for a scholarship opportunity, and then this is actually a real area at Heritage. It's the B hallway, but I got to digitally add this banner here, and that was our assignment, was to see what art would look, if there was more art on the walls, what it would look like in the school. And that was a really fun project. Needless to say, graphic design too, big part of my life during this year, but it certainly has not been the only class that's really impacted me. I've learned a ton about the tendencies of music and kind of the language of music through AP Music Theory, which is actually, I have it in this very room, so it's a pretty cool, very cool class. And I've learned a lot of fantastic general information in my Art 1 class, my AP Literature class, and really every class I've taken this year has further developed me as just a functioning adult, as an intelligent adult ready to go out into the workforce and into the world. As far as organizations go, that hasn't really changed very much. If you have been looking over here, you might notice it's a little bit thinned down from other years, and that was intentional. The reason why we kind of thinned out organizations during this year was because I wanted to get better as a designer, and also because college was right around the corner, so we needed to carve out time to prepare for getting scholarships, hopefully getting scholarships and searching for those. I've also been able to further reinforce skills that I've just already been acquiring throughout high school during this year, and it's been really cool getting to really refine these skills. As far as honors and awards are concerned, I was given another Chamber of Commerce award, huge honor, and a Heritage Scholar award. I was also invited to an awards breakfast, which I've had, and I really mean this, the honor of being invited to a few times over my years here. I was also awarded a superior rating in the categories of Christian band, worship team, and vocal ensemble in fine arts, which I mentioned was that competition that I do through the Assemblies of God. I got to do that this year, and I'm actually going to be advancing to the national level this August. So we're going to go to Louisville and compete. It's going to be a lot of fun. One of the biggest honors during this year, though, has been was me. I got to create a design for the Homecoming Corps program. That was our assignment in my graphic design class, and it actually got chosen to be the real Homecoming Corps program. So I'd like to show you what it was, if you don't mind. So this was the outside, and my thought was to create something that was very much enchanted feeling, but wasn't gaudy or too much to look at or just silly. So this was the outside look, and then on the inside was all of the Corps members. So this was a really awesome opportunity. I had a lot of fun creating it, and I was really honored that it actually got chosen. And so, in conclusion, I've changed in many ways, but in a lot of ways, I've also stayed the same. I'm really only a little taller, a little bit older, and like Miss Steen already can tell, I'm actually wearing the exact same shirt. And that really is a picture of me in 9th grade and a picture of me as a senior. I kind of hit my growth spurt early. So symbolically, that is to show that even though I have learned a lot, I still do have a lot to learn, and I'm very excited to do it. I hope to carry that passion for learning to John Brown University, studying to become, to earn a bachelor's degree in graphic design with the hope of long-term becoming a professional graphic designer. And though I haven't mentioned it as much during my junior and senior years, I am still extremely passionate about music, and I hope to pursue that at whatever capacity I can. And so, the journey continues until I am old and gray. And that was actually a graphic design project.
I thought that was Mr. Kilgore at the end.
Did you? Yeah, that was a lot of fun. But anyway, kind of funny. That is the end. So thank you so much for this opportunity.
Well, we end each of these with some questions and
Okay.
answers, kind of an interview of sorts. So
Yes, ma'am.
the adults in the room and our broadcasting guys that are here may have some questions
All right.
first, and then I'll finish up.
Okay.
Very impressed with the graphic design side, Jake. What are you most proud of probably everything you've done? If you were to pick one piece of work, and why?
One piece of work. Probably that Homecoming Corps program that you saw. I really loved how, in the end, it had a touch of elegance to it. It was, I believe it was kind of a streamlined look. It wasn't too much to look at. I hope that was the intention. Was that it very much enhanced what was going on. It enhanced the event without being distracting or anything, which I think is a really important aspect of design. Is enhancing, not overpowering, and not just being too much to look at. So.
Yeah. I don't know if I have a question, but I would like to say a couple of things. I love your energy.
Thank you.
I'm telling you, that is,
Thank you.
you kind of bring a brilliance to the room when you talk.
Thank you.
And your self-confidence, in what you do and how you present it. I think people who interview you someday for jobs, that is going to be a highlight of your interview right there.
Thank you so much.
Great job.
Thank you, Mr. Blockberger. I really appreciate that. Any questions? All right.
Wait.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
I do. You never took marketing. Just curious, because a lot of kids who go into graphic design take the marketing class. Because we don't have an advertising class, and so did you ever consider that, or just business wasn't your fit?
To be honest, I never really did consider it. I've always been more art-oriented rather than business-oriented, but I know in college I definitely will have to utilize that business side.
Advertising,
Right,
yeah.
and go towards that. But yeah, whenever I hit junior year, just that whole element of, whoa, I can create art on the computer and actually make it look good, that excited me. And so I pursued that rather than the business side. But I do really want to see the business side of it too, because I don't think you can really be an effective designer without knowing that.
We have an excellent teacher, don't we, graphic design?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
He really does.
I like the way he sets up his class because he puts a lot of the pressure, I don't want to say that, he puts a lot of the responsibility on you. It is your grade, it's your, very much like a job environment, whereas you can sink or you can swim. That's your choice. I'm not going to facilitate that. You're going to have to be the one who's going to make that decision. And I've been happy to I believe thrive in that situation where I've been able to do what I get to do. And he's also been very gracious as well. Whenever I've been a little bit slower or have wanted to take a little bit more time on a project, he's been very gracious with me as well. He's done a really good job.
Good. And you know your counselor has a degree in graphic design.
Yes, I actually learned that.
Yeah.
So when she invited me to the Rotary Club meeting,
Uh-huh.
and whenever
You
we
guys
were coming
talked.
back, yeah, we talked, and she said, yeah, I got a degree in graphic design, and I was thinking,
Bachelor's
what?
of Graphic design, so, yeah.
That's crazy.
That's why she fits that academy so
Mhm.
well.
She does.
So well, I hope you're keeping a portfolio. Lots of times, we've got this, but
Yes.
this is your graduate portfolio. But I mean, really, a graphic
Yes,
design
ma'am.
portfolio because
Yes.
you are going to need it.
And that really is, it has a lot of awards in there,
Uh-huh.
but I have structured it to be more of a graphic design oriented portfolio because it has about 10 pieces that I have, and it has explanations for them too. So it's not just,
That's perfect.
I wonder what this was.
Your
I wonder what this
reflection.
means. Right? It's got the purpose in there.
It's interesting what you had to say about the library mediate. I have been at least for probably the last 3 or 4 years, very impressed with the students that they choose to work in
Mhm.
there. They apply and choose. And I guess they have the opportunity, Ms. Fudger and Ms. Porter, to seek kids out that are going to do well, that we have those kids help us a lot.
Mhm.
And so what's your takeaway from that job that you're gonna take with you?
Probably the big takeaway, it's kind of similar to the graphic design class that I've been taking, but this ability to work and really have your freedom in working, because there was kind of a schedule within Library Media Aid. You need to complete this, kind of on a weekly basis, sometimes on a daily basis, but there was a lot of freedom there. And probably the biggest takeaway was the confidence that I can do this. You know, it doesn't have to be super structured. That my schedule, my agenda doesn't have to be super structured for things to get done, and for me to get real work done and not just kind of piddle around and
It's nice to hear you say that. I'm sure you guys are shaking your head yes, because broadcasting's a
Mhm.
lot like that. They've got freedom, but they know what they have to do, and that's
Right.
the real world anyway.
right. And it was a really, really good opportunity.
You waited till your junior year to take a first AP class.
I did.
That's unusual.
Yes, it is. The reason why, so I know that usually sophomore year
A lot of times.
is your AP world
Mhm.
history. And to be honest, I didn't, for me personally, I didn't see a real need to take that. I definitely saw AP in my future, but I knew that history was not the path that I was going to go on as a career, and I just didn't see the purpose in it. Because I do very much believe in excellence, but I don't think doing something just for the sake of stressing yourself out
Yeah.
is necessary. And I don't think that that's something that should be done. I think
All right.
Yeah. He's just an anomaly in that area, which is good. And I think the reasons you just gave are important,
Mhm.
okay? Because that whole stress piece sometimes gets overplayed sometimes.
Mhm.
As an alumni, soon,
Yes, soon.
there'll be times where we make decisions to bring alumni back for a reason. What would you like to be invited back for? What do you think your niche is that, boy, in my future, whether I'm still in college or later, I want to come back and,
Oh, well, I mean, if you guys would like to invite me back for anything, I'd be happy to do it. But one of my passions is would probably be to enjoy what you do, to enjoy your work, and to go after that, and to encourage people to find something that they really do love to do and go after that.
So you can
Because
come back and talk, that's
yeah,
to groups.
sure, I'd love to.
Show your famous design work to our graphic design class, maybe.
Maybe someday. Maybe someday.
Update the heritage logo.
There you go, when
Maybe
it's
the
time to
spruce-
redo the
spruce up.
logo, that's right. What teacher did you have for advisory?
For advisory, I've actually had a different teacher every year.
Because you went to Link Crew.
Yes, so I went to Link Crew, and then I wasn't in Link Crew this
You
year.
were part of the freshman academy,
Yes.
so you've had at least 3.
Yes, I had Miss Ray my freshman year. I had
Miss who?
Miss Ray.
Oh, that's right, got it.
Mr. Blevins my sophomore year. I had Mr. Levering my junior year, and then I have, oh my gosh, Mr. Reynolds this year.
Because you were not in Link Crew this year?
Right. So yeah, freshman year, of course, you're just put in there. Sophomore year, I was just put in there because I was in arts and comm.
Mhm.
Mr. Levering because.
You know that's not what we try, is the same one. for
Right,
every year.
I know.
But if you're gonna be
Right.
in things, then we have to.
I know.
That decision to put Link Crew in their own advisory
Right.
was a really
Yes.
decision.
And I think that's a good.
You think that was a good decision
Yes, I
on
do.
our part?
I think that was a good decision. I really do. Because inevitably, you'd have to take people out if they weren't part of Link Crew to get them together. So just putting them together in advisory makes sense.
I think I have one final question.
Okay.
There has been some in our district, I'm gonna put it that way.
Okay.
That have maybe requested that Heritage relook at whether the academy program is a good program for our students.
Mhm.
You drew attention to it in your piece. So I'd like to just briefly speak to, without the academy piece, do you think you'd be where you are?
I don't know so much if it would be a question of where I would be, but I would say a big thing. As far as encouragement goes, especially from counselors, with Ms. Collins, the fact that she is passionate about art specifically goes a long way. I mean, I can tell whenever I'm talking with her, she's passionate about what I'm passionate about. And I think that's important because your counselor, it's important to have a connection between a counselor and a student and what a counselor is trying to accomplish for that student.
So if she was just the counselor of 10th grade,
Mm-hmm.
that would not have been good for you?
I think it might not have been. If she
Yeah.
wasn't passionate about it, it just might have been, might not have been such a good, there might not have been such a good connection there,
Very good.
which who knows where that would have led to.
Okay. Well, very good. Anybody, final thoughts, final point?
I kind of had one, like, it was like
Okay.
tying in, like, beforehand,
Mhm.
whenever she was talking about, like, the business side of the graphic design.
Mhm.
Like, obviously, we're both in broadcasting, and, like, mine just are, like, furthering my career with, kind of that such, but, like, you're saying now you're starting to get in touch, are you learning about the business side of it?
No, I don't think I have yet. I haven't really learned so much about the business side yet. Now, I did work for a little bit as a graphic designer with my church, so kind of in an organization environment rather than, I know a lot of graphic designers kind of do freelance, so they're kind of their own boss. I have not worked in that situation. I don't know if I plan to. I might just work with an agency. And so as far as business goes, I don't know how much it will apply to me, but I do want to learn it because I think that's going to be important regardless of what I'm doing. Because I might want to do freelance one day, you know.
You might want to make money doing this, and therefore you know business.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. And so I haven't yet, to answer your question, I haven't yet, but I do plan to.
Well, Jake, thank you very much.
Thank you
It was
very
a
much.
good interview and a very good presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you.